This is the morning of the 18th. A clip put up by Brian Tyler Cone News. Trump's plan to evade Epstein file gets revealed. Plays for around 14 minutes. Let's have a listen.
To pass that Donald Trump has jumped on board and said basically that Republicans should go ahead and sign on to this thing. At the same time, we also know that a few days ago, Donald Trump publicly told Pam Bondi that she needs to investigate a bunch of Democrats, Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan Chase. Do you have any concern that even if this bill passes, compelling the release of the Epstein files, that Donald Trump can then point to an ongoing investigation into Bill Clinton as some pretext to be able to say, well, we can release some of the files, but not all of them, because of course we have this ongoing investigation?
Absolutely.
Oh, I think Donald Trump is going to play every card he can from the bottom of the deck. You know, he started by saying, as I said Friday, they should vote for it. I went back and looked at the transcript. He didn't say that on Friday. Note that he only says that the House Republicans should vote for this. What about the Senate Republicans, right? This is a bill. It's got to go from the House to the Senate. Why isn't he calling on Senate Republicans to vote for it? And what about him signing it? Has he agreed he's going to sign it? And all of that, Brian, all of that is kind of beside the point, because any moment right now, he could pick up the phone and tell Pam Bondi, just release the files. So he's going to play a number of additional roadblock cards before we get to the point that you're saying, which is he'll say, oh, well, it did pass the House. Oh, it did pass the Senate. Oh, I had to sign it or it was going to be overridden a veto. Oops. It turns out Pam Bondi can't release anything, because there's this ongoing criminal investigation that Donald Trump, created out of thin air, out of whole cloth, out of nothing, in order to continue to stonewall the release of these files. There is no reason why they cannot be turned over to Congress. There is no reason they could not comply with the existing subpoena by the House Oversight Committee. And all of this is just a game by Donald Trump to try to stall the inevitable, which is the release of more and more emails, more and more documents, and maybe, just maybe, Brian, some videos or photos.
It's worth asking, too, if there was some criminality that was perpetuated by Bill Clinton or Larry Summers or Reid Hoffman or J.P. Morgan Chase or any other Democrats, frankly, wouldn't that already be contained within the hundreds of thousands of documents where they already investigated all of this over the course of years and years and years? I mean, isn't that the whole point of being able to look at the documents to see all of the people that were involved? It's not like this investigation was only focused on Republicans. Anybody who was caught up in this dragnet of Jeffrey Epstein's criminality would presumably be contained already within the files that exist.
Absolutely. And look, we know that all the heat and the energy has been by Donald Trump and his cronies to look after Democrats. I mean, that's of course been the goal all along. But, you're right. I mean, to the extent that there was a full investigation of everyone involved with Jeffrey Epstein, you'd expect that would include everything. Donald Trump is not interested in going after everyone. In fact, Donald Trump may not even be interested in going after anyone here. Normally, I say he's only interested in going after Democrats. Here, he just wants the whole Epstein thing to go away. Like the Epstein files, the Epstein emails, the Epstein drawings, as you recall, like all of this is just one big embarrassment wrapped in a humiliation for Donald Trump. Like at a minimum, and I mean minimum, what these records continue to show is that Donald Trump is mentioned over and over and over again. Donald Trump is involved in some form or fashion. I don't know what the full extent of it is, but it is a big embarrassment for him, and I think he just wants them to all go away.
Mark, I have to ask, too, I had read your newsletter, your Democracy Docket newsletter, and you posed a series of questions that reporters should be asking Donald Trump in light of this Epstein news. And so can you give some of those questions that you think reporters should be asking that we're not hearing any of these reporters ask Donald Trump?
Yeah, Brian, I'm glad you asked. I listed 10 questions that the media should be asking Donald Trump. And of course, they don't ask Donald Trump these hard questions because they this because their parent companies may want some merger or acquisition, or because, well, I'll leave you the rest of it for you to imagine. So here are some easy ones. He says that the House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files. What about the Senate Republicans? Will you publicly state that they should release the files as well? Will you commit to signing into law any House bill that obtains the release? One of my other questions, if you want the Epstein files released, why don't you simply order DOJ to release them now? On Friday, you said the Epstein files were another Russia scam. Why are you comparing an investigation involving Epstein to the 2016 Russia investigation? Is there something about your relationship with Russia that you believe parallels the evidence of the Epstein crimes? Another one, in one of the released emails, Mark Epstein tells Jeffrey to ask Steve Bannon if Putin has pictures of Trump blowing Bubba. Who's Bubba? Do you know whether Vladimir Putin has any photos of you performing a sex act with someone named Bubba? In the Friday Post, you claim records showed that these men and many others spent large portions of their life with Epstein on his island. What records are you referring to? Have you reviewed portions of the Epstein files? Are you personally familiar with flight logs or other records related to the island? And I end it with, are you willing to answer these questions and other under oath? Would you be willing to waive the immunity the Supreme Court gave you and any immunity you may have regarding Epstein and release the records? Now, that's just a handful of them, and I would love to see the legacy media ask these questions, and if he doesn't answer them, ask them again.
I should note, too, for anybody who's watching, if you're not yet signed up for Mark's newsletter, highly recommend that you sign up. I'm going to put the link to Democracy Docket right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. This is the kind of analysis that we need to be elevating right now. So, again, if you're not yet signed up, please do yourself a favor and sign up. Mark, it's worth asking here, even if Donald Trump doesn't allow the DOJ to release any of this stuff, do you have confidence that what we're getting from the Epstein estate will be at least to some degree satisfactory in terms of exposing the criminality that we've seen?
Look, I think we're getting a lot from the Epstein estate. That's clear. And I suspect that there's going to be even more that comes from the estate and also comes from others, right? Because, there are other witnesses who will have emails, who will have other documents as well. I am confident of this. I am confident that at the end of the day, these records are all coming out. Donald Trump can put a clamp on them in one place, but then they push in another direction. He could put a clamp there, and then it moves back. Like, he is panicked, clearly. I mean, you look at his body language, you look at his overall demeanor. He looks like shit. And, I mean, that is for a guy who normally looks his age. He looks like overwrought by this, and he's clearly doesn't know how to stop it. But I think they are all coming out. The question is, as I said, I've asked legacy media why they aren't doing more here. I mean, ask yourself why they aren't beating the drum on Donald Trump the way they did Hillary Clinton over her emails, the way they did when it was John Podesta's risotto recipes that they wanted outed before the 2016 election. And maybe the answer, Brian, is because at the same time that they were clamoring for that, a reporter at the New York Times that is in these emails released in the most recent batch by the House committee is chortling it up with Jeffrey Epstein about pictures that Epstein may have of Donald Trump with girls in bikinis. And right. So this is from top to bottom one of the greatest scandals.
Not just girls in bikinis, topless underage girls sitting on his lap.
In American history, what Donald Trump is doing in trying to hold these records back. And you ask yourself, why isn't the media covering it that well? Well, I mentioned the New York Times. CBS News seems like they are, now in the suck up to Donald Trump mode, having paid $16 million trying to get their media mergers done. ABC News is in suck up to Trump mode, as Disney also paid money to Donald Trump. And, and remember what they did with Jimmy Kimmel until there was an outrage. CNN, I mean, what the hell happened to CNN? I mean, CNN, they're nowhere to be found. I mean, they are both siding their way into absolute oblivion. So it is left to people like you and this channel, and I hope everyone subscribes to this channel, hits the bell to be informed when there's new content, and other new media outlets, other independent media that don't rely on the corporate overlords, on the people that are sucking up to Donald Trump in order to get the important information out.
I have to ask, too, what do you make of the fact that there were Republicans who, even up to the very last minute, like Troy Nehls, for example, who said that this is just a Democrat hoax, notwithstanding the fact that it was Dan Bongino, it was Kash Patel, it was Alina Habba, it was Donald Trump himself, all of J.D. Vance, all of whom went on the campaign trail and said that we need to release the Epstein files. It wasn't the Democrats who were out there, it was the Republicans. To their credit, the Republicans who were out there saying that they need to release those files. You've got Troy Nehls, who up till the very last minute refused to release the files, but then once Donald Trump came out and said, you know what, as I said on Air Force One, now that I see the inevitability of this thing happening, the Republicans should release this thing. And only then do we have someone like Troy Nehls come out and say, you know what, I do plan on voting for the release of the Epstein files. What does it say that there is not a scintilla of courage only until the moment that you realize that you have political cover from Daddy Trump, even on issues like protecting pedophiles?
Absolutely, and it's not just the House Republicans. I mean, where are the Senate Republicans? You know, it'd be nice, by the way, if the legacy media asked some of these Senate Republicans, instead of throwing them softballs about the shutdown, it'd be nice for them to ask them about this. But, you know, where's Susan Collins? You know, where's Dan Sullivan, the senator from Alaska? You know, where is John Cornyn, who's supposed to be some kind of moderate from Texas? Right? Where are all these Senate Republicans who claim that they are, you know, independent because they're senators? Why aren't they lining up to say, hey, we want to introduce a parallel bill in the Senate? Because, you know, for this House bill to matter, it has to pass both the House and the Senate and get signed by the president. Now, before we get to the president, it has to get through the Senate. Where's John Thune? You know, why isn't John Thune saying, I'm going to bring this up right away as soon as you know, it comes over from the House?
Right.
I'll tell you why. Because the Republicans in the Senate are cowards. They're just as cowardly as the House members are. They're just as bad as the MAGA extremists in the Republican House. I mean, you know, they act like they're somehow different, but they're not. There are only two flavors of Republican politicians in Congress. There is proud MAGA and there's scared MAGA. And sure, there are more proud MAGA in the House and there are a lot more scared MAGA in the Senate. But, you know, we're about to watch as all of those scared MAGA Republicans in the Senate do everything they can to say, I didn't read the bill, I didn't hear about the bill, I don't know what's going on, I never heard this. Well, it's all a bunch of bullshit. So everyone needs to call their Republican senator, and tell them to pick this up and make sure there's a vote.
And let's finish off with this. Because you're in this space, because I'm in this space, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this idea of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino ever returning back to the world of political commentary after their time in office is over and trying to preserve a modicum of respectability, given the fact that they built their brands on this idea that they were going to be these champions for transparency and accountability. And instead, not only have they not sought transparency, not only have they not sought accountability, they are involved in the very effort to suppress these files that those guys themselves had condemned for so long while they were raking in tons of money as podcast hosts, only up until the moment that they became the very thing that they claim to hate.
Yeah, I mean, what's not clear is whether the greater tragedy of this is how absolutely unprincipled they are, or how much their followers were misled, right? Yeah. I mean, like, on the one hand, if this was just about these two people who will go down in history as villains, as cowards, as people who, when their country needed them to stand tall, they instead became part of this administration and bowed down, compromised all their principles. If that was the worst of it, you know, it would be easier to take. But the fact is, there were hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Americans who listened to them, who paid money to advertisers and others to support them. And they have all now been, you know, victimized and misled. Because, as you say, a lot of those folks wanted the Epstein files released for the right reasons. They wanted to find out who were the powerful men who were taking advantage of these girls, along with Jeffrey Epstein. And to the extent that those people were then victimized by unscrupulous podcast hosts turned Trump sycophant government officials, it makes it even worse.
I told you they're garbage. Cross-eyed FBI Director Kash Patel. You think his 26-year-old girlfriend is still with him? If she is, she's a complete idiot, because he's going down. I'll attach the link. Let me know what you think. And thanks for listening.